Good evening, brothers and sisters. My name is Amir Smith. I'm a former New Wave president coming out of District Council 37, Local 1306. I was terminated October 9, 2014, the day after being nominated for local president at the American Museum of Natural History. Sadly, today I have to report a scandal that's currently going on in District Council 37. I've reported this numerous times to Washington, D.C., Lee Saunders and Laura Reyes, which they gave a deaf ear on the situation. I've also placed charges on District Council 37, White Collar Division Director Mike Riggio, Executive Director of District Council 37, Henry Garrido, as well as former council Representative Wendell Reed. As you may know of Mike Riggio and Wendell Reed, they were former representative for the OTB organization, which sadly over 1,000 people has lost their jobs and pensions. As you can see here, this is Lee Saunders and Laura Reyes leading the way. I've attended this convention and voted for this administration proudly while under a severe car accident, taking numerous therapy sessions to strengthen my back, to take a 4-hour flight from New York City to LA to make sure I voted for this administration because I strongly believe in their approach and what they stood for. Sadly, I have to say that they failed my members, myself, and also failed OTB in a way that they could bring a sense of compassion and justice to these people, to let them know the people that was watching over them are doing illegal activities with representatives from the American Museum of Natural History, in particular Daniel Shiner, which is the Vice President of the American Museum of Natural History, and also he has a trustee position within District Council 37. Today I will get into the last letter I wrote to Mike Riggio boss, which will be John English, Regional Director, as well as go into the contents of this book that I mailed out to AFL-CIO President, also Lee Saunders, also John English, and various people in District Council 37 Executive Board. As I've been informing you on my election and my court arbitration being rigged, I deserve a new arbitration hearing with a neutral arbitrator. My findings, along with Al Sharpton National Action Network Crisis Advisor Kevin McCall, who referred me to his lawyer. Kevin McCall looked at my transcript along with documentation I recently mailed to you. My charge against Henry Garrido concerning the back pay for the bogus job conducted at the American Museum of Natural History, which Dan Shine is a Vice President of Human Resources, a trustee on District Council 37 Union Board, along with Mike Riggio and the following president at the American Museum of Natural History. This is a huge conflict of interest in the union cover-up. Also, with my union protest, I'm the rightful president of Local 1306. Mike Riggio has worked with Jay Naluback because he was assigned to an arbitration case previously within his division. Dan Shiner was on the CBA board with Jay Naluback for District Council 1707 as well as District Council 37. My boss, Don Boyle, former NYPD officer, tampered with the garage surveillance tape, which was proven by my lawyer, Richard J. Washington, during the cross-examination. The transportation director, Anthony Paranastro, was drinking and sent to anger management, which was proven by my lawyer, Richard J. Washington, during cross-examination. Also, Mr. Paranastro never was reprimanded. I never received any policy about the garage when my lawyer, Richard J. Washington, requested the signed signatures of the policy that was supposedly given to me. My boss, John Naganji, says he throws out signed policies every 6 months. I personally gave my overtime to one of the assigned managers, which my lawyer submitted into evidence, showing who was in charge of overtime at that time. My supervisor approves of personal phone calls during cross-examination by my lawyer, Richard J. Washington, which successfully had my manager admit to past practices. Write-ups were placed back in my folder during my termination. Please note I reported this to the new council rep of my local. Former NYPD officer Don Boyle in HR has their own set of personal folders. Jay Nadelback never had evidence to dismiss me. This was an inside job. How can something like this happen and everybody sits back with and watch another local being slaughtered by Mike Riggio, just like OTB. These are the same union representatives who were supposed to watch over OTB, and look what they're doing. If I took the bribe to become a council rep, which Wendell Reed kept asking me, maybe I wouldn't be in this position. I need help, I'm asking for help. Thank you. My credibility as a former New Wave president. Successfully reinstated an employee under false allegations by aim and inch. Also, reinstated a second employee, which was placed under the last chance stipulation. Thirdly, under Mike Riggio watch, I successfully took a member off a final warning, which he left on a final warning for 10 months and did nothing about. After being reported to Lillian Roberts numerous times, that member was placed off a final warning and received back pay for 3 days. Also, during Hurricane Irene, I fought for back pay because the museum fed my members old food. This was reported to Mike Riggio, and he failed to do anything about it. I received $500 in vouchers, which Local 1306 and Local 1559 HVAC department shared together. Hurricane Sandy, I fought for a thank you dinner, and I fought for it by myself. These are only a list of few members that were overlooked by Mike Riggio and reported to Lillian Roberts. Mike Riggio determines who stays in the union. For example, Local 1559, which is the second local that's inside the American Museum of Natural History, highly overlooked with numerous violations. This is why I represented him during Hurricane Irene, which resulted in a 3-day stay. Now I would like to get into some context of this book, which I gave into the Lee Saunders and Laura Reyes administration. I feel it's very important for people to know what's going on. This is why I'm doing this. Because my charges were not proven to be insufficient. I was told they were dismissed under abandonment. As you may recall, I said I was terminated at the American Museum of Natural History, which I was gearing up for my arbitration. Also, with that being said, I placed in charges on the executive director of District Council 37, as well as Mike Riggio, the White Collar Division director. And upon my return to the Millennium Hotel, which I was excused to make copies, everybody was gone. I've been to Washington, D.C. 3 times. And every time I went to Washington, D.C., my cries for new hairmen fell on deaf ears. So let me get into an article that was written, and I can show you myself what I'm talking about. Here is an article by Bovis, Bustin, and Froskin, written by Greg B. Smith of the Daily News. I want to read the highlighted sections for you. The construction giant agreed to pay $50 million in fines and restitutions for scamming work at City Field, Grand Central Terminal, and the American Museum of Natural History, which would be my former place of employment. At this time, I was the local president, giving in contracts to Henry Garrido, which is now the executive director of District Council 37. Here, as I said, with my arbitrator, you can see in 2012, Jay Nattleback. He's on a labor management team for District Council 37, 1707, regarding the CBA negotiation. Also, you can see Dan Shiner, Director of Human Resources at the American Museum of Natural History, conducting a collective bargaining agreement for 1707 and DC37. Here, District Council 37, Cultural Institution, Health and Security Trustee. Dan Shine is a trustee here, as well as Mike Riggio, as well as the second president, which I will not name, at the American Museum of Natural History. This is a big conflict of interest in the union cover-up, and this is why we're doing a video to expose this conflict of interest and scamming. Because I believe 1,000 workers from OTB need to have justice, a peace of mind, and know the people that were representing them behind closed doors are cutting deals and they're involved in fraudulent activities. Here I would like to get into my union process, and this is why I say I'm the rightful president of the local. Because one thing we do have still is common sense. I believe in that, a strong common sense and proving what you're talking about instead of making up these allegations. Here is a notice, September 17th, 2014. And it says here, as I will read it for you. Notice of general membership meeting. Next general membership meeting, Local 1306, will be held on September 17th. You don't see nothing about AAA coming in. You don't see anything about members being informed of a AAA hearing. Not at all. September 17th. So how does one have a letter here dated September 16th saying election will take place Tuesday, October 28th, 2014 from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. in lower level section 12 food court annex with the court and to follow. If a runoff is needed, it will take place on Wednesday, September 12, 2014, a.m. to 4:30 in the lower level section 12 food court annex. Will count to follow. Both elections and runoff will be conducted by AAA. Local 1306 Election Committee, White Collar Division Room 406, 125 Barclay Street, New York, New York, which is the telephone number here, and self-explanatory. So how does one conduct a $5,000 AAA election without it being approved by the membership? September 16th says it was paid for. September 17th says this is when you ask for it. I've reported this numerous times to Laura Reyes and to Lee Saunders. I've reported this numerous times to AFL-CIO president. The reason why I've done this is because District Council 37 has an affiliation with AFSCME and AFL-CIO, and I believe I took the right channels to get this situation exposed. Unfortunately, they want to sweep it under the rug, but today's a new day. Today's a day of justice. Today is a day that we can bring down these individuals behind closed doors. And I believe this is a way of keeping a light on and exposing people for who they really are. So I would like to get into another segment of this book. Here you can have, you'll see here, which I wanted to point out to you, a collective bargaining agreement. You see Henry Garrido name here. This is Executive Director of District Council 37. Jay Nadelback, which was my arbitrator. And also, December 3rd, 2014. As I told you previously, I was fired October 9th, 2014, which is only 2 months of conducting a CBA with the same arbitrator that conducted my case. Also, charges were put on Henry Garrido the year of 2014 and also was given into AFSCME in the month of December, hand delivered by myself coming from Brooklyn, East New York to Washington, D.C. This explains why my transcript never had cross-examinations from my lawyer. This explains why a person is able to rig an arbitration hearing and it goes unnoticed, because this was an inside job. This was an inside job because I've reported the president of the American Museum numerous times, which is Ellen Futter. At the success of the American Museum of Natural History, Night at the Museum movie, you would think that she would have a little bit more compassion on her workers. You would think that she would not allow people to have anger management issues while working amongst millions of children that visit this institution on a yearly basis. This is why I took the opportunity to contact Mayor de Blasio, because he's an EXO officer on trustee for the American Museum of Natural History. In this book, which was mailed and hand-delivered to Lee Saunders and Laura Reyes administration, as well as everybody else that I previously reported, I would like to briefly inform you on how she treats her employees and the conditions that we're subjected to be under. Here is a DC37 Occupational Health and Safety report, which I reported them to our own in-house OSHA. Staff cafeteria. within the American Museum of Natural History, it's a beautiful place to work, and I enjoyed my 8-year tenure there. During that time, a universal, which is the whole entire building, received a new supply of water to drink, filtered water coming through a machine, which also is a $40 bill from what I was told. Unfortunately, my department, which is my department is dominated by minorities, blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, so on and so forth. And this is how she had us drinking. Broken water cooler cover is off, with an out of order sign posted. There are dead water bugs and roaches carcasses inside the cooler. The wires and internal workings of the water cooler are rusted. The water line never was checked. You're drinking out of a water fountain that has water bugs and dead roach carcasses inside of it. This is how she treats her employees at the American Museum of Natural History behind closed doors. And it is not by surprise that she has a vice president on the same union board as on District Council 37. That does not happen by an accident. This was reported numerous times, and I will not sit back and allow this to be swept under the rug. Now, I would like to also bring into the fact that I've reached out to a lot of people in political positions. One would be NAACP, never received any phone calls back. Jermaine Williams, city council member, never received phone calls back. But I was successful enough to reach out to Al Sharpton and his crisis advisor, Kevin McCall, which seems like they wanted to take legal action and for me to get a lawyer. But as me doing some investigations of my own, I would like to reiterate a speech that Al Sharpton gave at the University of New Mexico. And for a man who grew up in projects in Brooklyn, New York, let me tell you something, Mr. Sharpton. I also grew up in the projects. Linden Projects, Fort Greene Projects, and I can also relate to the story about your sister concerning what made you become a civil rights activist. And I quote, "Roaches function in the dark. The mistake I made every time I cut the light off, they would come out for cover. That's how I became an activist. I learned that if you can cut the light on, you can change the roach policy and give you you change the roach policy on the high end. What we must do is never let them function in the dark. As long as they're in the dark, they will cut backroom deals. They will cut you out the budget. They will freeze your employment. You have to march, agitate, rally. You have to cut the light on so they can chase you, so you can chase them in a hole, and we could bring a new day." For a man that has some background, has the same background as myself, you should lend a helping hand. Instead of referring me to lawyers, I want justice. The slogan of the NAN stands by no justice, no peace. April 6th through 9th, 2011, as you can see here, this is the president of AFL-CIO. This is Lee Saunders. This is the former executive director, Lillian Roberts. This is myself. I attended this hearing as well as not to use them as a platform, the Sean Bell family. As well as you know, you have a lot of minorities being killed on the street. And I would never want to use them as a platform to get my story heard. I want to bring this to your attention because we as New York citizens of the city and citizens around this country, we're not getting a fair shake. But is it fair to say that every time you see an activist is around a dead body? What about the people that's living? What about the people that need a voice when they're in time of distress? Not only when my body has to be laid down in the street for a politician to give me help, or they helping themselves as having to have a platform to be heard and be seen around the world as if they're doing something for somebody. But when there's a serious situation going on, they turn a blind ear. So no justice, no peace, as long as you get a piece. Because it seems like there's nothing about money going on. I am a well-known person. I fought hard for my union. As you can see here, I'm in the newspaper here, alongside Lillian Roberts and the other officials of District Council 37, which I still call my brothers and sisters, because they are. And this is why I'm doing this. So people in OTB can be informed on what's going on. People in OTB need to know the person that was watching over them, behind closed doors, he's rigging union elections. He's working with people that you're supposed to be fighting against. This is why you pay union dues. Not to be slaughtered and left behind, but have a voice. This is also me here on the front page of the Chief, along with the rest of my union brothers and sisters. As you may know, the president of District Council 37 had autographed this poster, "I am a man." And if you know anything about the Obama administration, as I said, when I voted for Lee Saunders and Laura Reyes administration, I had the opportunity to meet the Vice President of the United States of America, the Honorable Joe Biden. Why do I say that? Because if you know anything about the "I am a man" situation, this was the first sanitation strike with AFSCME concerning the sanitation workers in 1968. And I would like to read the quote that's on here. "To Amir, keep growing. You are our new leader and our friend." Eddie Rodriguez, president of DC37. So I do not want to seem like I am disrespecting the biggest union in New York City. Because we fight for real good issues. All unions are not bad. It's the people that's behind them that make unions look bad. This is why I choose to make my own platform to be heard, to inform you what's going on behind closed doors, to inform OTB. Because out of 1,000 workers, they need a peace of mind. Is it fair for people like Mike Riggio to cash in 165,000 hours off of union funds a year, annual salary? Is it fair to have Henry Garrido, which did not want to be looked on as doing a bad job on a Bovis contract, which he knew numerous times what was going on with Bovis. He said out of his own mouth during delegate meetings. He's good at finding and outing Mayor Bloomberg, the former mayor, on not giving us a fair deal on a collective bargaining agreement. He was very good at knowing that cell phone towers were missing about $20 million in payments. He was very good on knowing that a lot of parking garages was converted into buildings and still was receiving a religious tax break. So we're not talking about a man that is incompetent. He's very competent. But why did that happen? Why are they turning a blind ear? Easily. Because the American Museum of Natural History has two locals inside of it. One is Local 1559. At this current time, they're negotiating for scientist positions. My local has an estimated value of $13 million on career ladder positions. We have career ladder positions that was implemented into people's salaries, while working, they're making additional money. And since it's been implemented, it costs the institution $13 million. So what are they doing? They're trying to put my local under administration in the future because we have a treasurer that is stealing money out of my local. We have a certificate deposit account, which never was given into an audit to be checked. Every time this CD account and the receipts was asked for, never was given in. So why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? It isn't fair for people to out the union and use us as collateral to get what they want. It isn't fair for a person like Henry Garrido to go away and not be brought to justice. And this is why I'm bringing this to the attention of the Honorable Mayor of New York City. I want him to know what's going on because he is an ex-official for the American Museum of Natural History. He's also giving funding into the American Museum of Natural History. So he should be well aware of what Ellen Futter is doing behind closed doors, how she's treating her employees, how she has employees that was sent to anger management and still working around kids, and how collectively everybody is coming together to out me out because of information that I've obtained during my own investigation. This is the highest form of public corruption, and it needs to be brought to the light. So, as me coming into this situation, I would just like to say something to OTB. Let's cut the lights on at District Council 37. So we may not have a job. We all union, but it's something that doesn't need a vote. It's something that they can't take away from us, which is our voice. Let's stand together with a common goal, and let's have a march. Let's organize something. The common goal will be to remove Henry Garrido out of office, to remove Mike Bridgio out of office, so it won't be another OTB, so there won't be another Amir Smith. I'm asking to stand together, and let's fight for justice and expose the truth. And in closing, I would like to mention this. I was also mentioning in District Council 37 newsletter that goes out to municipal employees of this beautiful city of New York City. This is during the Bloomberg administration time. There is money here, and I would rather stand for something than die for nothing, said Amir Smith, the recently elected president of the American Museum of Natural History. So what am I asking for today? I'm asking for people that's not even in the union. I'm asking for people that's in the union. I'm asking for the retirees. I'm asking for the members of OTB to stand with me. And let's use our voice as a weapon, because that's the only thing they cannot take from us. We can make our own platform. And I'm asking if you can share this video so we can have some light. So the Mayor de Blasio can know what's going on. So other public officials can know what's going on. It's not right for union officials to steal union funds. It's not right for executive directors to overlook bogus contracts because the person that works at the American Museum of Natural History, which is the vice president, is on their trustee board. It's not right for Mike Bridgio, which was supposed to watch over OTB, while people don't have a job, while people have to start from the bottom, while he still collects in $160,000 a year. It's not right for myself to start over. In my early 20s, this was my career. Coming from nothing and making something, and not having a mother or father around. My father's around now, which is, I thank God for that, but that's just a little personal insight of myself. It's not an excuse for not making it. They would rather myself and people that look like me to be gangbanging and snatching purses on the street, as we're stereotyped of doing. But there's a lot of great people that go through terrible things. But it's not about me anymore. It never was about me. This is why I choose to become an activist in my union at the age of 21. This is why I've done it, for you, so it won't happen to you. So just because a position was taken from me, you can't take my voice and they can't take yours. So let's stand together in solidarity. Thank you much for listening.